Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. So today's topic is training, and the title is Effects of Cardiovascular Efficiency. Why you should suck at cardio. I actually literally mean the title. So if your goal is to be the best body composition you can manage, whether that's body composition of the goal of, say, like fat loss, like you're okay with the muscle you have now, you just want to get some fat off over it, or maybe you're trying to find like a nice kind of healthy general balance of muscle and fat, or whether you're like an aesthetic athlete trying to maximize as much muscle as you can have with the least amount of fat, or a strength athlete trying to do the same. So any goal where you're trying to maximize fat loss but minimize muscle loss and or try to have muscle gain, okay? Your goal, one of the aspects of your goal should include always being horrible at cardio. You do not want to be good at cardio. Now, I recognize that this is something that may be odd for other people to hear. In a comical sense, this is something I found out a hell of a long time ago. So I've been lifting weights. At the end of this month will be my birthday, and it'll mark 20 years of me working out, okay? And I've talked about in past podcasts that the most time I've ever missed in consecutive days has been 7, and I've only done that twice in my life. So in the last 20 years, I've only ever missed 7 consecutive days of training, twice in my life. So that's pretty consistent level of training, okay? So anybody that's done anything for 20 years and never took more than a week off, you're going to have some decent level of experience and knowledge with it, I'd at least hope. And something that kind of I learned really early, within probably the first 2 or 3 years, was that cardio was ineffective in the wrong pursuit. So for me to become better at cardio was actually negative towards my goals of best body composition. So this is something I've known since I was like 18, 19 years old, and I've always done with my clients. And it comes up every now and then, but I really only kind of thought of to make it a podcast now, which is kind of funny because we're 400 and some podcasts into this, and I'm just now presenting one that says cardio should suck. And I lost the sensitivity to how shocking that might be to some. And it was only in a recent conversation with someone that it kind of came to light. And they're like, man, you should do a podcast about that. I'm like, why? Like, everybody kind of knows that. And then I recognized, holy shit, no one knows it. So it was kind of funny in the revelation. It's very common sense for me. And I'll get to what that means here in a second. But you always hear when somebody says, like, oh, I want to lose weight, I started walking, or I started running, or I started jogging, or, I started doing more of X. And what they always do more of is cardio, which is the stupidest thing you could possibly invest time into. Like recently I started working with a guy, he's in his 60s, and he's been eating like a jackass and wanted to kind of get better control over his health. So he started walking, and that was his response. Rather than really fine-tuning his nutrition, paying attention to exactly how much he should be eating, exactly what foods, he just kind of ate what felt kind of sort of right most of the time, was still knowingly making mistakes, and thought that just walking for 40 minutes a day would clear everything up and fix everything, which is crazy. So it is, when I think of it, it is ridiculously common that everybody turns to cardio as the first thing they think to do. And the reason why is because it's the lowest level of effort you have to give. So the lowest level of you having to actually do anything resembling work would be walking. So no one's going to like this, okay? But could you change your eating? Yeah, that's an option, but that takes effort. That takes maybe learning how to do that, and it takes having to deny ourselves foods that maybe we really want. It takes effort, okay? Could you exercise in terms of doing resistance training? Yes, you could. But again, that takes effort. Or you could just walk. You could move your own self around, just walk around a little bit. Hell, they even make TVs on treadmills now, so you can just watch TV and walk. And that's what people turn to. Not because you think it's the best thing. Let's all get rid of the bullshit self-lies. It's not, you're not picking cardio because you think it's the best thing. It's because it's the laziest damn thing you can do that still counts as doing something. And in all areas of life, the laziest thing we could possibly do gets us the laziest results. And we're well aware of that, but we don't want to recognize that because it means we have to put more effort in and actually give a shit and try at the things that mean something. So we would rather convince ourselves that the lowest level of giving a shit is good enough, and then everybody's surprised whenever, oh man, I started walking in the mornings and I just really haven't lost any weight. No shit, because it's the lowest level of something you can actually try. And all you're really doing is moving yourself around for 30 minutes or 40 minutes. So maybe you're burning, 3 bites of the piece of cheesecake you're having later on the day, rather than learning that you shouldn't have cheesecake every day. Okay. Or maybe burning off half a glass of wine when you have 3 of them every night. So walking, okay, is the lowest level of physical activity. And in general, our physical activity levels don't contribute much to our overall caloric burn for the day. So we've talked about in podcast number 390, where we talked about proper nutrition for sedentary workers. So people who kind of sit on their butt at work. And in general, what kind of started that podcast idea was somebody saying, well, since I'm sedentary at work, I don't feel like I should eat during the day. And it's like, oh, good God, no, you definitely need to eat. So you're still burning a significant amount of calories just being alive and answering a phone and typing on a computer. You actually still burn about 70% of your overall calorie needs. And physical exercise activity, so activity related to physical exercise. So not the activity of us just kind of fidgeting in a chair, not the activity of us typing on the computer or holding the phone, but actual exercise dedicated activity contributes maybe at best 10% to your total calorie needs. So when you think of the best type of exercise can contribute, roughly here and there about 10%, and then you're doing the lowest level of giving a shit of exercise, you're not even getting close to 10%. Now, is walking better than doing nothing? Yes. Okay. But let's not play the game of what is the most pathetic thing that still counts as something. Let's play the game of if I'm going to spend 30 minutes, what's the most effective way I could spend 30 minutes? So congratulations if you've previously been doing nothing and now you're walking. Because that means that you have taken time out of your schedule and devoted it towards a physical activity. Let's get rid of walking and actually use something that'll be benefits for us. So take that same time and move some weights around. Okay. So we talked about in podcast number 30, way back when. Okay, podcast number 30, titled Muscle Cardio, How to Lose Fat Without Losing Muscle. And we've also talked about in podcast 181, how to use muscle damage for fat loss. We've talked about the fact that resistance training is significantly more effective for time spent towards fat loss and also body composition. So meaning like, how can I build muscle and lose fat at the same time? Or how can I maintain my muscle and lose fat at the same time? Like using resistance training as your cardio is the answer. Just walking and doing general cardio is not. It's a complete waste of time. So even doing something low-level resistance, where you're doing, say, just steady state, kind of just continual pacing on something like a rower, Concept 2 rower, still kind of a waste of time. So yes, when you pull the handle, there's some weight to it, but there's no muscular damaging type weight. There's muscular annoying. Okay, you annoy the muscles, but you don't damage them to create a kind of environment of recovery that would happen over the next, say, 12, 24 hours. So the body can recover faster from rower than it ever could from a resistance training effort. Now, is a rower better than walking? Yes. But again, let's not play the game of the lowest things that matter. Let's play the game of the best things that matter. Okay? So, I'm going to tell you a little bit of background. Is when I work with my clients, very often when we do something that has cardiovascular challenge to it, they always laugh that they suck at cardio, and my answer is always good. So they always laugh that I'm happy that they're out of breath. And they're always amazed that no matter what we do, they never seem to be in better cardiovascular shape. They're not like so every time we do like some kind of a crazy aggressive thing, or circuits or something like that, or outside flipping tires, pushing sleds and whatnot, they're always like, man, I can't believe I'm getting so out of breath. And I'm like, that's a good thing. That's actually what we want. So we do not want to be good at cardio. We want cardio to absolutely suck, because that means we're going to get the greatest fat loss effects to it. Okay? So They feel that they suck at cardio. However, they're almost always performing supersets and circuits and things that involve different fuel systems of the body. So there are different types of systems we have in our body that fuel activities of various time frames. So there's a different type of fueling system we use for activities of, like, say, instant, like 1 rep maxes. Then there's a different fuel system that we use for, say, activities around, like, roughly, say, 30 seconds. Then there's a whole different system we use for activities of, like, say, 2 hours. Like if you're going to go, run 3 miles or a marathon or whatever the hell. So just kind of a long duration, low, steady state activity. So there are different fuel systems in the body. And whenever we organize their training, I'm always pairing various fuel systems together. So we'll do an activity of, say, like a 5 seconds. So they'll do something really heavy for 3 reps. Then we go into something that's like maybe 20 reps. And what we're doing is we're pairing different fuel systems in a sequence. And then over the whole hour of doing that, we hit into the third system. So what we're actually doing is we're testing all systems of the body, which creates an enormous aerobic stress on the body because it has to deal with all the systems being broken down and used up at once. So my goal when I train them is not only to get whatever their goal that they say is, like if they want bigger biceps, bigger butt, whatever, we want to get that. We also want to work on strength because physical strength relates to overall health. We also want to use all of those goals, like working on those things, to contribute towards aerobic health. So that way they have better blood work and they get healthier in that way as well. So when we do their programming layered this way, we can work on improving joint strength, mobility, balance. We can get muscular shape and or development wherever we want it. We can get strength increases, and we can get muscular endurance and cardiovascular endurance increases. And we can do all of that while still staying with only 60 minutes of weight workouts. So the goal is to get how many aspects of health can we improve in 1 hour. And that is the argument that I'm making in this podcast of what you should try to do. So your goal is to use weight training as your cardio. And again, this is explained in podcast number 30, Muscle Cardio, How to Lose Fat Without Losing Muscle. So what we'll do, for example, is they'll do a 5-second explosive activity paired with something that takes like maybe 40 seconds to complete. And it's more muscle intentioned, more muscle focused. And then they maybe only get like 2 minutes rest. So it's a 5-second activity paired with a 40-second activity with only a 120-second rest. And we cycle through those for various rounds. And then maybe they'll get a 3-minute rest as we set up the next type of circuit. But that's what we're doing for an entire hour, is we do muscular damage, muscular failure type movements, okay, strength failure movements. So we're maxing out their nervous system, we're maxing out their muscles potential, and we're at the same time we're adding up to an insane volume of work, so that way we can accomplish all goals. So I posted recently on our social media page that I did 21 sets of dips at 10 reps each. That's 210 reps. I did it in under 30 minutes. So I did 21 sets of work in under 30 minutes. And I'm 270, 80-ish pounds. I'm not fat, but I don't have veins everywhere. I'm in okay shape, but physical shape in terms of aesthetics. But that's pretty damn good cardiovascular conditioning in the sense that I can do 21 sets of work in 30 minutes. And I wasn't out of breath. I was totally fine. I went and met a friend after that and was totally good. So my resting heart rate is in the low 60s, upper 50s. At 200 whatever pounds, 70, 80 pounds. So I don't have any blood pressure issues. So I'm relatively healthy, knock on wood, and grateful for that. But that comes from the result of this style of training, where you can have the aesthetics goal you want, you can have the strength goal you want, and in no way do you have to give up your health. So you don't have to give up any kind of blood values if you learn to train in this way. So the key here is we use resistance training as interval cardio, and we very rarely, if ever, and I mean possibly never, do we ever do steady state, low level, endurance based cardio, where you're trying to build the foundation of a cardiovascular conditioning. Now, the exception to this is when I have athletes who do need that. Okay, so I work with athletes who do triathlons, who do Ironman. There are certain degrees of cardiovascular efficiency that you need for certain types of competitions. So like for CrossFit style competitions and whatnot. So there are athletes where cardiovascular performance is absolutely necessary. So we do go ahead and make them cardiovascularly efficient. So for example, I've trained people for like Division 1, scholarships in like football, for example. So the average football play lasts like 7 seconds. The average rest time is around 35 seconds between plays. And it's all somewhat arguable, but close enough. So 7 seconds of activity, 30-ish seconds of rest, and they have to be able to do that for 4 quarters. So when we set up their training, we actually set up their training with those numbers in mind to make them very efficient at 7-second explosive activities with the ability to recover in 30 seconds and be able to go again. And then we do that for a sustained period of time of, say, roughly 60 minutes. So again, we're building all systems. We're building the explosive systems, we're building the overall base systems, but we never use just an hour on a step mill or an hour on a treadmill as our way to do so. It's always done through weighted resistance circuits that add up to about 60 minutes worth of time. The reason why this is important is it ensures that our metabolism and our body never adapts fully to the training. And what I mean by this is we want adaptation to the outcome of the training goal. So if I want them, like if I want a football player to be able to play for 4 quarters, I want that adaptation, yes. But do I need them to be able to run, a marathon? No. Why the hell would a football player ever need to run a marathon? So what level of base conditioning do we need for their goal? So if you're looking at somebody who's just trying to be less fat, okay, so they just, as Kevin James says, they want their belly to stop jiggling when they brush their teeth. So there isn't a high demand of cardiovascular fitness that is required for general health. Not at all. So what is sad is when people spend this enormous amount of time devoted towards a cardiovascular base, but it doesn't build strength, it doesn't build muscle shape, it doesn't build the body's robust ability to handle stress. So they're always doing low-level, pathetic levels of stress on the body, and they're going to get very pathetic level of results. So what I mean by this is you can have somebody who can do an hour of the treadmill, but they can't sprint for 30 seconds. And it's like, holy good God, which is more useful? So what are we trying to be good at here, people? So that's what we do in our training. And some things I want you to think through, okay, is think about if we run a mile. If you went out and ran a mile today, and let's assume that you're not like, you don't normally run, okay? So if the first time anyone would have ran a mile, whether that would be today for you or if that was, 10, 15, 20 years ago, but the first time you'd ever run a mile, it's horrible. It sucks. Your body's like, what the hell are you doing to me? Muscles are cramping, like things just feel awkward, things hurt. So it doesn't feel good to go out and run a mile. Now, the second time we do it, still sucks. Still not very fun. Third time, still kind of miserable. But by the time you get to like maybe the 100th time you've ran a mile, that becomes like a nonchalant, hoo-ha, whatever, it doesn't matter. Kind of like a warm-up or a thing that you wouldn't even think of. Your body adapts to the stimulus. And part of the adaptation it does on a repeated stimulus is it reduces caloric expenditure. So your body figures out how to run that mile with devoting the less and less calories over time. That's actually not what we want. We don't want that. If your body can figure out how to burn less calories while doing the same level of effort, then for you to burn more calories, you have to do more cardio or you have to eat less food. So over time, if your focus is just cardio for fat loss, that means that over time for you to get progressive results, you need to do more cardio and or eat less food. That sucks. There's eventually going to be an amount of time that you can't devote any more time towards cardio during your day. And there's going to be eventually an amount of food that is too low for your body to be deemed safe, and your body will stop losing body fat. So it's a progressively failed system. If you just do cardio for fat loss, and that is your sole focus, okay, for fat loss, you're just going to do cardio, you will fail at that goal. There will become a limit of how much cardio you can do and how little of food you can eat, and eventually fat loss will stop. Maybe you'll reach your goal of losing 5 or 10 pounds before you'd hit that wall, but that wall will be there. And what happens when you hit it? Okay? So if you do cardio with the goal of trying to be better at cardio, that is a faulty goal. That is not a good goal. That is not what you should do. Okay? So instead, we should use weight training, resistance training in supersets circuits in a fashion that mimics interval cardio, where you have bouts of high effort, bouts of low effort. So for example, I might do 60-second combination of a superset of exercises, then I might take 60 seconds at rest. So while I'm exercising, that's high. While I'm resting, it's low. But that is our goal, is to do intervals, okay, highs and lows, peaks and valleys of intensity, rather than steady state intensity. And again, the reason why this is important is you never need to increase the duration of your efforts. You don't ever have to do more. You only have to increase the intensity. So how hard it feels. So whereas if you do more and more cardio, like if you do cardio only as your fat loss goal, okay, your fat loss activity, you eventually have to do more cardio to get the results or eat less food. If you use resistance training in interval cardio fashion, okay, we call it muscle cardio, then you don't have to do more and you don't have to eat less. You simply have to increase the intensity of what you do. You have to make what you do harder. And that can be done by selecting like exercises that incorporate more muscles. Maybe they're harder exercises. That can also just represent by doing something 5 pounds heavier. That is an increase in intensity. So whereas you might have to increase cardio 5 more minutes, and you do that this month, next month, next month, next month, all of a sudden you're in the gym 5 hours a day. Whereas if you use weight training, if you just bump an exercise up 5 pounds, that's your increase in intensity. I don't have to be in the gym longer. I just have to move heavier things. Or maybe I have to move the same weight, but maybe only 2 or 3 extra reps. So the amount of more that you have to do when you focus on resistance training is more intensity, not more time. And that is the goal. So from the same amount of work and the same amount of food, you can continue to lose body fat. You would simply just increase the intensity of the work that you did. So if you focus on cardio, you always need more cardio or less food. If you focus on resistance training, you just do the exact same amount of work. You eat the exact same amount of food. You just increase the intensity of what you do, how hard it feels. So sucking at cardio ensures you don't have to continuously do more of it, okay? Or even having to eat less and less food over time. Sucking at cardio allows you to just do more intensity of what you already do. So if you already go to the gym 1 hour, 4 days a week, great. You never have to do more than that. Ever. Ever, 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 ever. So like I said earlier, I've been lifting weights for almost 20 years. So it's a week away from 20 years. When I first started lifting weights 20 years ago, it was 60 to 90 minute workouts about 4 to 6 days a week. Okay? It's 20 years later. I still only have to do 60 to 90 minute workouts 4 to 6 days a week. You don't have to increase the quantity of work. You only have to increase the quality, the intensity of what you do. So if you focus on cardio as your fat loss, you're playing a losing game. You will eventually have to do more cardio or eat less to make progressive results. Both of those are not good options for us. Whereas if we focus on resistance training, you never have to spend more time in the gym. You don't even have to eat less. You just have to train harder. And if you continue to train harder progressively over time, you will never stall out. You'll always make progress. So in the last 20 years, I've added over 100 pounds to my body frame. And I'm leaner, body fat percentage wise, 100 pounds heavier than I was 100 pounds lighter. Okay, wrap your heads around that. So I was 185 pounds, pudgy, fat, didn't look good, didn't feel good, and kind of definitely didn't look my best. 20 years later, I weigh 100 pounds more. I'm significantly leaner, way healthy blood work, and I never had to do one extra minute of work in 20 years. I just had to make the minutes I did use count for more. Okay? I just had to push the intensity of what I was doing, the quality of what I was doing. So again, if you do cardio as your form of fat loss, it's a losing game. Your body will adapt to the cardio. It'll figure out how to burn less calories. Therefore, you eventually need to add more cardio, or you have to take away more food. Whereas if you do resistance training, interval cardio style workouts, okay, where you use resistance training as your cardio, you do supersets, you do circuits, but you train the muscles. And especially if you know how to use it where you train different fuel systems. So if you know and understand how to pair together different fuel systems in your circuits, that makes the results like infinitely better. Okay. So that would be a whole nother level of kind of stepping up the process. But that's our goal, is if we use resistance training and we do it with a interval cardio style structure, you never need to spend more time in the gym. You don't need to eat less food, but you can continue to make results for years and decades to come. Okay? So, please, 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 if you know that you want to lose body fat, don't start with cardio. Don't just go walk. Okay? That's the lowest level of anything you can do. Therefore, you're going to get really pathetic, if any, results out of it. So take the time and the effort. Learn a little bit about resistance training. Okay? There are infinite videos on YouTube for techniques of exercises. Now, some of them are horrible. They're not going to hurt you. Just the quality of the person teaching it's an idiot. But they're just missing nuances or missing certain positions. But there's tons of good videos out there, okay, that you can get. And weights are cheap. You can buy them at freaking Walmart for you can buy 5, 10, 15, 20-pound dumbbells. They're really cheap. Okay, it's like $1 a pound, I think. So you can get equipment and you can figure out, there are resources out there. Okay, there's trainers. You can hire a trainer. There are resources out there to teach you how to lift weights healthy and safely and properly. You can get access to the equipment. So if you just skip going out to eat, okay, twice this next month, you can pay for some dumbbells that you can use for the rest of your life. So invest time towards that. So whatever time you would take to walk, whatever time you would take to jog, don't do that. Take that time and put it towards resistance training. You're going to get much, much, much better results, and you can get progressive benefits over time without having to do more and more over time. Okay? So hopefully this kind of raised some awareness as to what would be the most efficient way to use your time, what's going to be the best bang for your buck, and why you should not focus on cardio as your way to kind of quote-unquote burn calories and burn off fat. Okay? Now, if you have questions about this or you need help implementing it, or if there's any reason you need to contact us, our email is brutalirongym@gmail.com. We're always happy to help, so please, please, please reach out. Now, if you like the podcast, please share it with family and friends. The more people we help, the happier the world will be. Also, if you like this information, you can find more from us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Brutal Iron Gym. And if you have any questions, feedback, or suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. The podcast is for you, so we want to know what you want to learn about. And you can tell us at our email at brutalirongym@gmail.com. Okay? As always, I hope this was helpful. And thank you for listening. And thank you for watching.